co-founder of Lakera. David, take it away.
Thank you, Cass. Thank you for preparing this and putting this session together. It's awesome to have some great people on our webinar, both on the panel and in the audience. Always nice to see so many familiar faces, and super exciting to host this session today. Just a couple of words about myself. Prior to Lakera, I spent about 10 years building AI across safety and security critical applications, from financial services to autonomous aviation. And a lot of sort of that experience feeds into what we're doing at Lakera today as well. With that, at Lakera, we get to work with really amazing companies, really from Fortune 20 companies to fast-growing startups and everything in between. We essentially do three things for our partners. Number one is we provide visibility into their GenAI deployments, so showing them what's going on in the first place and what kind of risks they are exposed to. Number two, we protect their GenAI from malicious activity. It's easier than ever to hack GenAI, and we talk about some of that today, and so we protect them from malicious activity and hackers. And then number three is around making sure that our partners can control their GenAI in line with any company policies. So ensuring that the AI only does what it's supposed to do and nothing else. Next to that, we are also known for, or people often know us for, Gandalf, which is not only a lot of fun. I often say it's the world's most fun red team, but it's also turned out to be the world's largest AI red team today. And Cass and the team actually, I was in the car this morning and saw my Spotify wrap up today from all the songs that I listened to this year. Cass and the team published the GenAI security wrap up today, so you can see some of the amazing numbers on social media, LinkedIn, and beyond, in terms of what Gandalf has done this year for GenAI security. If you haven't tried Gandalf, have a go at it. It's really fun, and people generally take a lot away from it. The primary reason for starting this webinar series in the first instance was the GenAI security readiness report that we published earlier this year. The goal was really to come together and provide a sort of state of the union to the community in terms of what people in the space are concerned about, what people are doing about it today, and how we think about the future. You can find it under aisecurity.report, and it's the end of 2024 now, but it's definitely still a worthwhile read, and we look forward to providing an update on this in 2025 as well. And with that, and next to what we do at Lakera, we also really love bringing amazing people together, and so we used that AI report that we published to start a really amazing show this year. So we had a couple of these sessions throughout the year with really amazing guests from Joe Sullivan, Christina Liagardi, David, who is with us again today here, my wonderful co-founder Matteo, Nate Lee from CloudSec AI, and also our friends at Sneak, in particular Elliot, who joined us for one of the earliest sessions. And so today, super excited to host the final session for this year with another set of really great people that we got to know throughout the year, and that we are doing some amazing work with as well. First on the panel is Ken. Ken is really someone I'm very excited about, a key figure in the GenAI security space, from his work on for the Cloud Security Alliance that hosted a couple of really amazing events. I think it was in October this year, that I think resonated really well with the community. OWASP to being an accomplished writer. So Ken, I know you just published a book that came out on GenAI security, and I encourage all of you to take a look at it when you can. Maybe Cass can put the link into the chat here. We got Mark Mark is a security engineer at Dropbox. He does not only have an awesome Christmas tree in his home, but he's also been working closely with us at Lakera over the last year. And Mark, I consider you to be one of the leaders in this space, and your thoughts are always super appreciated. And I think there are a few people like you in the space that have sort of that refined thinking around what we need to do to keep Gen AI safe. So it's really great that we finally got you on the show as well for this last episode here. We got Nathan. Nathan is a senior director of research at Kudelski Security, where he leads their amazing research teams, and with a focus that's particularly relevant for us today on securing emerging technologies, including AI. And I know you're also doing a lot of amazing work with Black Hat, so thank you for joining us today. And then last but not least, David, I did call you a regular at this point, so thank you for joining us again. You're a very welcome guest and in this show, but obviously sort of during the day or during your job, you're AI security risk lead and or the lead for the AI security risk and generative red teaming at scale. Obviously one of the fastest growing and sort of most iconic companies in the AI space. So always appreciate your insights and what you sort of learn from customers and the technical discoveries. So welcome back to the show. With that, I promise I'll stop speaking in just a second. But I wanted to open this up with some perspectives on this year and pass it over to the amazing speakers in just a second. 2020 year, I mean, what a crazy year. And I don't know if you all are following AWS reInvent that's currently going on in Vegas. And we got the team on the ground. If you do want to meet them, let me know. But from what I hear, absolutely crazy. Gen AI, agents, all the talk. Who would have thought of last year how fast we progressed towards that? Rapid Gen AI adoption, absolutely everywhere. So I wanted to sort of start off the session asking, maybe you, Nathan, first. So if you look back at this year, what are some of the learnings? What are some of the things that you discovered this year from a security perspective? If we look at that sort of rapid adoption of Gen AI.
Sure. And I think this is where all of our different backgrounds are going to provide different perspectives, right? Because I work for a security company that delivers security services for organizations across the globe. So they're dealing with a lot of more common challenges, not necessarily cutting edge challenges. But I would say from my own perspective, I think the biggest learning for me is that, a lot of companies are not letting security risks stop them from deploying this technology even deeper into systems. So we've seen things like recall from Microsoft, cloud computer use, and there's the upcoming OpenAI operator. I mean, pretty much, every one of these products, other than operator, which isn't out yet, in almost every deployment has been owned. So across the board, people are compromising these systems. And a lot of this isn't being used as kind of a take a step back. Oh, is this the right tool for the job? Is this something we should be doing differently? A lot of companies are actually pushing forward like it never even happened. Even with some startups. So for example, I've been stunned by the lack of care that some of the startups have had. So like having issues in their code that lead to remote code execution, and they're absolutely not fixing it. I mean, we've had an incident with my team where we tried to report vulnerabilities to another startup, and we tried to get a hold of people. They absolutely wouldn't respond back, and we ended up making the vulnerabilities public because there's nothing else we could really do there. And all of these tools still have vulnerabilities in them. So I think it's really important when people are, working with third-party libraries and other people's code, for lack of a better term, you really have to make sure that all of that stuff doesn't have these inbuilt vulnerabilities in them, because you could be developing on top of a platform that's vulnerable. So since I'm usually seen as being too negative, let me say a positive thing. So I really have been not necessarily surprised, but I do see a lot of potential in tool use combined with LLMs. So some of the stuff that Google has been doing with Project Nap Time or OSS Fuzz, I mean, these are really cool techniques, and it really allows you to use tools for what they're good at, LLMs for what they're good at. I even saw a paper this year on using neurosymbolic AI for code reviews. I think a lot of that stuff has a lot of potential. So I'll end on that high note.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And would love to pass this on to David. I mean, you talk to a lot of people out there, and like I said before, really appreciate the insights that you bring from those kind of conversations. What was maybe a surprising or maybe not so surprising learning for you this year?
Yeah, I think I mirror Nathan a lot on this. I think Gen AI has been a double-edged sword, right? Like the adoption has surged, but we've seen like attackers have started to shift their focus more towards like unique exploits per service, which isn't generally unique in cybersecurity, but I think it's a unique application of it because each AI system will have some of those foundational layer vulnerabilities as well as like specific vulnerabilities on top of their application. I love that Nathan brought up the point of like the availability of tool use. My career, I'm almost have 20 years of experience building tools for horizontal teams like platform engineering and SRE and security. And only in the past 2 years have I worked with machine learning at all. So I think it's really amazing how easy it is for toolsmiths to start building on top of LLMs to get really, really interesting things done. Now, the other side of that is like the escalation of AI-driven threats has just rapidly emerged. Adversarial prompts are super prominent threats right now. I think 2024 really like highlighted the importance of AI red teaming for me. I mean, obviously I'm biased; that's what I do every day, but it's really starting to uncover and identify those blind spots in AI systems. It blows my mind how quickly we've evolved. So back in January, my team and I went to Capitol Hill and did a red teaming demonstration to Congress. And now it's December, 11 months later, and everything that we were kind of showing then and saying here's how the world works is completely irrelevant now. Like there's like ignore previous instructions doesn't work anywhere. So it's really fascinating how rapid these things grow. I think red teaming has grown from being like a tactical measure now to like basically a strategic necessity.
I love that. And the one thing our team realized the other day, we regularly do a review of some of the Hugging Face data sets that are out there to test some of these systems and see how LLMs and other models respond to these kind of inputs. And we realized that most of the stuff that's out there is totally outdated. And these are like, I don't know, 3 to 6 month old data sets. So you look at them and you think like, wow, someone released this 3 months ago. And then you actually realize, well, the world has moved on quite a bit. So that definitely resonates. And I think does highlight the importance of some of the work that you're doing, David. 100%. Ken, how about you? You've spent a lot of time writing this year, from what I understand. So, what are your big thoughts for 2024?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, David, and the cast for this invitation and for having me with this distinguished panel. Also, congratulations on Lakera being a part of the SageMake pipelines.
Thank you.
Its partner apps. So that's a really good achievement. Yeah, in terms of
Thank
what
you.
I learned, I certainly agree with David Campbell. We need the red teaming early. We need the red teaming often. And with Nathan and also David, you just mentioned that's the speed of innovation just so fast. And it's really hard to catch up. I'm writing the book. I have to constantly update the book to the point that, okay, that's enough. I cannot really catch up. Let's call it the cut, right? So I will not update anymore. So that's how I submitted the book for generative AI security. But what I see actually, yesterday I also was the ISC Square on the another topic about the AI security. we talk about the AI safety and the AI security. I kind of, after that, I reflect a little bit. I just post on the LinkedIn, I think AI safety is overhyped and the AI security is underhyped.
Yeah,
So
I wanted to
we're,
ask you about that. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So we are not really like have existential risk with AI yet, right? At least in the near term. So, but we have a lot of issues with security in terms of CIA, right, side of it. And Nathan and David has also mentioned some of this. So this is actually also the goal of my book is I did not call it generative AI safety. It's more on the security. So this one thing, I think it's, I just put a blog post there, but it's too deep, too much time to take. But one thing I really want to mention, it's also underhyped in, in the community, in the cybersecurity community, is the impact of deep fake, right? As a deep fake has been like, I think the financial crime enforcement network from Treasury Department, FinCEN, actually warned that there is a increase of deep fake. And there's a case that some crypto exchange, when they do the user provisioning and or even the authentication, they're using face recognition or liveness detection, right? This kind of thing. That's all can be deep faked. And there is a situation even in Hong Kong, there's a multinational company was using the deep fake to have a employee in a Zoom meeting with his co-workers, and all co-workers he knows, but they are deep fake. And eventually $25 million. That's in April of this year. So this year has a lot of deep fake. And also in US, there's like a deep fake call of in New Hampshire, right? To ask people not to vote. So there's a lot. And I think in cybersecurity community, it's really not put it into the top agenda yet. But I think next year it will be. But I think I should stop here. It's too much to cover. Thanks.
No, thank you for sharing that, and also again highlighting some of the activities at reInvent. That's yeah, again, from all I hear, certainly a great event going on this week. Maybe to quickly sort of conclude the round here, Mark, how about yourself? We're you know, we certainly spoke quite a few times this year, but yeah, I would love to hear sort of what has come out of this year.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me. So I'm an application security engineer at Dropbox, and yeah, there's definitely been a couple of tactical takeaways from this year. And I think the first has to do with the large context windows that are available in the state-of-the-art models. So we're now up to 128K tokens, and it ends up being very difficult to, it's increasingly a challenge to secure prompts and outputs of that size. So it's because it's generally increasing both the latency and the probability of false positives for our prompt and moderation detections. So I think we're learning that there needs to be an appropriate balance between security and usability in our AI-enabled product. So depending on the application, a document, like for instance, Dropbox has a lot of document summarization features. A reactive security approach is probably better suited than a proactive one. We don't want to be blocking too many prompts or outputs because it's just going to be detrimental to the user experience. So the other thing is has been the utility of Lakera as a visibility tool. So as a governance telemetry data point, like we're able to analyze all of the detections that are going on in our LLM security layer. And we've been able to use this telemetry to improve our prompt engineering hygiene, as well as improve data quality, so that these products are actually engineered better. So we're finding mistakes and gaps in our tooling because of these detections. Like when we get a detection, it's not always because of a malicious intent; it's because of an engineering gap in a lot of cases. So as a security engineer, we're doing consulting within the company and also engineering solutions. So these two things are kind of what we've drawn upon this year.
Thank you for sharing that, and also for sharing some of the work that we've been doing together. I mean, like I said in my intro, I think of you guys as really working at the forefront of Gen AI, and that's really from an application standpoint, the kind of scale that you are running and the kind of products that you're building, but also, of course, from a security standpoint. I mean, what's like noteworthy from our side is, especially it feels like in maybe like the back half of Q3 and then Q4 now, scale has really picked up. That we see very serious applications being deployed every single day, and so the complexity of hosting and securing those has really sort of exponentially increased this year. So around the same time last year, it felt like we're all looking for the first kind of use cases, bringing them to production, and seeing how it works out. But looking at the scale that we are at now and what it means to make sure these are safe and secure. That's something that we found to advance surprisingly well. And I want to bring it back to you maybe for a second. You and the OWASP organization that we are also fortunate to be a part of have recently released introduced the OWASP Top 10 for AI agents. Tell us a bit about that. Maybe sort of a quick TLDR on what that is and how you sort of see that framework address some of the risks that we are maybe discussing here and for sort of agentic workflows going forward.
Sure, yes. Thank you for your team to participate and contribute in the OWASP Top 10 as well. Yeah, I think the original OWASP Top 10 for LLM is still very good. Example like a prompt injection, over reliance, all this is still applied. But with agent, I think the gaming is changed, right? Especially it has increased autonomy and also the orchestration. Like you can orchestrate the agent, the multiple agent, right, to do something different based on its model. And you also have the agent communication between this. And also agent can assume certain identity. And whenever it does the work, it has to be assume the identity from someone. So those also, all this complicated the original thinking we have, like when we're trying to do the OWASP Top 10. Yeah, so this way it's a candidate framework. It's not finalized. We were involved everyone. So Lakera team, thank you very much as well. So yes, this is the candidate list. You can look more detail into it, but it's really because of the complexity involved and autonomy, right? So just one example, right? Agent authorization and the control hijacking is basically the agent may have the different level of authorization. If you change it, escalate the agent authorization, it may do something it should not do, right? Or maybe it can be prompt injected to be controlled by malicious actor. This one example, right? And potentially another example, I think, is the impact chain and the blast radius. So the agent, if they talk with each other, if one agent is impacted or was pawned or controlled, it could impact the agent down the road. We do propose some mitigation strategies for each of this. So welcome to take a look.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to quickly get back to one of the things that Nathan, you mentioned around OpenAI's operator. That's something relatively recent. Can you give us a quick summary of what that actually is and why you think that's a big thing?
I guess I was muted. Yeah. So operator isn't released yet. At least I don't think so. I'm gonna look foolish if it actually was released. But it's basically a tool that runs on your system that allows for controlling various aspects, kind of like Claude computer use, where you could give it a task, it could open a browser window, grab data, and things like that. So I think I made a joke that, in the past, attackers used to have to deploy malware on your system, and now it'll come preloaded from the manufacturer. Not to be too doom and gloom, I just don't think some of these particular I think they make for cool experiments, right? And I think that having them around allows people to experiment and kind of see what's possible. However, I think broader use for more daily use for these types of tools are going to be incredibly dangerous, because we're going to continue to find people exploiting them. And, it's very impactful when it's your personal computer that gets attacked, right? Because that's where your files and your documents and everything are. When you hear about a server getting attacked, it's kind of almost, it's like, oh, that exists in the cloud. That doesn't really affect me too much. So my concern is that these tools are becoming more and more coupled into the operating system, where at some point they almost won't be able to be detached. If you start having critical functions of the operating system, like let's say an operating system manufacturer, I won't pick on Microsoft, but let's say Microsoft decided that the only way to search your computer now is through using an LLM functionality built into the operating system. I mean, how do you can't really decouple that or pull that apart. And what we kind of find is that when these systems have vulnerabilities, they may not be able to be fixed. So now your operating system has features that are vulnerable that you can't disable. So one of the examples I use here is, everybody's heard about AlphaGo beating Lee Sedol at the game of Go, right? Very big accomplishment. But what most people don't know is the work that Stuart Russell's lab did in adversarial policies. Because today it's possible for an average Go player to beat superhuman Go AIs using adversarial policy attacks, and we're kind of stuck with them for the moment. So that's the danger in using cutting edge technologies that we haven't discovered all the issues with yet in a production environment, in a very high risk use case, right? So high cost of failure use case.
Wow, that's mind blowing. Like I always think about, I mean, I use ChatGPT a lot, and we talked about some of the transition from the server getting attacked to my personal computer, but it's not only that, right? It's my phone, it's like the devices in my home, and like all of that. And in some sense, I want to get to the point where we have these like async agents, and I can say, hey, please book this flight for me and figure something out, and let Mark know that I will arrive at the bar at that time of the day, and all these things, and come back when you're done. But that's also, yeah, it's scary. So I guess looking to 2025, maybe you, David, or Ken, Mark, just gonna open this up, or you, Nathan, for that matter. What should we prioritize? Like, what should we look at in terms of security? I mean, it seems like there's so many things to look at, from traditional cyber risks to all the new stuff. Now we've got these agents coming around and coming into my home and looking at all my data. It seems like we all want to progress in that direction, but like, what should we prioritize from a security perspective?
So really quickly on this topic, what most people, I don't know why this happens every time a new technology comes out, but most of AI security, right, is application and product security. It's not like generative AI comes along and all of a sudden, oh, we don't need permissions anymore, or we don't need to do X, Y, or Z anymore. So you get pretty far by doing threat modeling, doing architecture reviews, looking at how systems are deployed, identifying points of failure, identifying exposure points. What happens, we know if an attacker can get data into these systems, we can't trust the output. So maybe even having some of these systems be thought about as untrusted from the beginning, and then see how we change our controls based on that. I think if people thought about them more like traditional applications with additional functionality, that lets you know what the gap is, how much can we use that we already know, and what do we need to kind of to bridge that gap. I would say that that's really where you want to start with. And of course, being highly careful of all AI risk is use case specific. So any high risk, high cost of failure, safety critical application needs to be highly scrutinized and potentially not used in those environments at all until people can actually make sure that they're going to be reliable in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nathan, I haven't said that before, but I love your setup there. That mic is
Thank you.
incredible.
Thank
So
you.
amazing. I saw a lot of nodding there. So Mark, David, did you want to add anything here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna build on what Nathan said. I think the key to being successful in AI security is doing what we've done for the past 40 years. I think a lot of it is thinking outside of just the model, start thinking about the entire stack again. People have just been so focused on specifically zeroing in on making sure the model is safe, and then forgetting about the basics of keeping the cloud safe, keeping your application safe, making sure that data is limited to certain scope. I think that's actually going to be really important as we start to break into this agentic world. Is get way more interested in like unique agent identities. I think Docker did really well at making like jailing really, really easy. I think that's a piece of software I see happening within the next year, is somebody finding a way to really be able to lock down and have a certain identity per agent. I think that'll really help with the security aspect of that. And then again, best practices all around, like data minimization. Your agent should only have access to the minimum amount of data that it needs. I think that actually, Nathan brought up a really good point that I hadn't thought about because I work on production systems, is on your local machine, like that's really hard to lock down. Like being able to access system calls is a pretty broad area of surface area there. So I think that builds on like session monitoring. I think we're going to have a lot more insights into what these agents are doing and why. And I foresee, especially in a production environment, but this may make sense on a local machine too, is basically like a kill function or a stop function. Like, hey, something went awry, I'm going to stop it, then I'm going to debug and analyze what happened. I think that feedback loop is really important to not only ensuring a system is secure, but I think especially in my world of AI red teaming, I think that feedback loop is so vital to be able to get a new model, test it, evaluate it, run automated tests, run synthetic tests, then run human tests. I think it all kind of builds on top of each other, and then you provide that data back to the MOEs who do the amazing work of making their models more secure. So yeah, I think there's security at every layer. I think that's really going to be the next place for people to look and work towards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I would like to add something. What I see is currently most like people doing this AI security is ad hoc, like giving this particular AI application what we need to do instead of more like a security program, like organization-wise, what is the risk-based approach, like based on different level of risk, what the control need to be added. I think in terms of that, one example, it's a good example, is the Microsoft, right? Microsoft has a responsible AI team. It's an individual team, but it's really associated with their enterprise risk management, which recently adopted the NIST IMF. Kaz has posted there, and with map manager, measure manager, and govern, and then has a dedicated red teaming. Right, so this organization-wise, I think it's a good approach. Currently, it's still the ad hoc. Like, okay, this project we need to get out of the door, right? Instead of organization-wise. So that's actually in my book. I don't want to say a book, but I just mentioned it in the security program important. How you define the policy, procedures, and process, right? This is important. Yeah.
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 Sorry, Mark, you go.
Yeah, I think I'll just add, I think I'm not really saying too much additional to what everyone else has said, but I totally agree. I think like you need to have your house in order to solve your own problems the best way. And so to execute on that, you do need a realistic threat model for your organization. Like if you don't know where your greatest risk lies and can't quantify either that or how much you expect to be able to reduce it, you're in a bad position to be able to apply any security tooling. And then even if you get that right, even if you pick the right, you know your problems, you pick the right security tooling, if you don't implement it or execute its integration in the right way, or pay attention to enough defense in depth, you're not actually going to solve your problem either. So you need to have good processes in place. So like the quantitative risk program and a standardized SDLC, these are like the prerequisites for doing AI ML security right, I think.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you mentioned two key things there, and that is visibility and ultimately making sure that you have the right sort of SDLC in place. I think those are two really important things to keep in mind. Mark, I wanted to stick with you for a second. We talked about agents. Maybe we'll get back to agents in just a second, but what if you're just starting out now? Like, what if you're working in an organization and you're starting out on your Gen AI journey? What are the things to start with from a security perspective? I mean, maybe you mentioned some of that now, but any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's investing. You need to invest in the AI ML features that are going to make your workforce more productive. So you need to make sure that they can use generative AI safely in their everyday jobs. For starters, you need to try to secure the usage of that to protect your own intellectual capital for the organization. And I think a third thing is a use case for Gen AI is to enhance security. So there are ways to level up static code analysis and do threat hunting in novel ways using machine learning. So an organization, I think, has to invest in all those things. And then, in order to secure those, they need to pay attention to the right tools, and you need to, find the right vendors that meet your needs according to your risks, and go pick and choose what you need, or grow it organically from within the organization. And again, then you have to integrate them in the right way. Having the risk program and an SDLC standardized, I think that's the key to starting out in the space.
Love that. And time is flying. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. It feels like we could have this conversation for the next 2 or 3 hours. There's so much to discuss here. We do have a Q&A coming up as well, and I've seen a couple of really interesting questions come in. Just a quick one for the panelists here. What's going to happen next year? Maybe we start with you, David. What are thoughts on next year? Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think next year is going to be really exciting. I kind of talked about it earlier, where I think we're going to have to start locking down agents and making sure that they're secure. But I think, as advanced adversarial attacks continue to grow, I think a lot of organizations just lack that defense. I think that's something amazing that Lakera provides. And so incorporating adversarial testing, I think early on in the life cycle of a product, I think is really valuable. I think I'm concerned when folks will take a model straight off the shelf, and then be exposed to selling a pickup truck for $1, like Chevrolet and Watsonville did. Like those things of just assuming that the base set of tools available are going to satisfy your business use case, I think is going to provide a little bit more harm, at least for the next year or two. I think agentic red teaming is going to be huge. I think finding out where those limitations are in between the handoffs between each agent is going to be crazy. I think we should focus on a lot of the reasoning models too. I think that red teaming reasoning models is also going to be a lot of fun. Handling the AI agent autonomy and misalignment, I think, is going to really put us forward. I think it's going to be one of the top priorities and kind of where we're thinking about things are heading. Then as well as like data poisoning and model manipulation, these are often overlooked in this entire data pipeline. Like I said, my perspective is way more in the production environment, but you have to step back. You have to, I guess it's called shift left now, but you need to really think about things as early on in the life cycle of a product as you can. And I think that really involves looping security in as early as you can. I think a lot of organizations have always had this problem, at least in my experience, where they'll write like an RFC for a new product, and then they'll start prototyping the code, and then they'll loop in security. And I think with AI, that's probably going to be too late.
Love that. Nathan, what are your thoughts? What threats do we have to worry about next year, and what are we going to do about it?
Well, I think if deployments keep going the way they do, and people ever wanted to know what hacking was like in the late 90s and early 2000s, they're about to find out. There's going to be a lot of ownable deployments being pushed. I mean, as people get more pressure I mean, every company is seeing pressure in this area to do more with generative AI. You're going to see a lot more of these things happening. I don't think we'll see as much agentic AI as we were expecting. I know it's being talked about by a lot of the tech companies. I really think companies are going to struggle with the exact same problems they've been struggling with this year. I don't think they've solved them. And I think there's going to be a lot of reliability issues as people start experimenting with just agent-based systems. So I think there's still a way to go there. Obviously, those companies that are on the cutting edge are going to, run up against those problems very quickly. I think taking a step back for most organizations across the board, I think what they're going to run into is problems with supply chain issues and product purchasing, because a lot of new products are having generative AI features, and customers buying them don't really know what that functionality does. The same thing with development tools and libraries that developers are using. These things have issues in them that the developers don't know about. So I know it's not the most exciting thing that we could talk about, but I think organizations really need to look at their third-party vendor questionnaires and start adding AI-specific questions to those things. So does your product use generative AI? How is my data used, stored, and handled? Is it used for training? And one of my favorite questions, does your tool actually create and execute code? So does your tool actually, do something, make a request, get some code back and execute that code? Because that is a prime target for remote code execution. But I think those types of things should be in a vendor management questionnaire and should be asked of new product purchases and things like that. So inventory, I guess, is probably what people should most organizations who aren't doing cutting edge things really need to focus on, inventorying what they have and what the developers are using, and making sure that those are at least have some security scrutiny.
I love that. I was certainly not old enough to hack in the 90s, but the thing that worries me is that we got like 10-year-olds on Gandalf, and they make it all the way through to level 8, and that's not easy. And so now it really seems like it's easier than ever to hack software systems, just because of the interfaces that we have available. And today it's mostly text, right? LLMs everywhere, but what about images? What about audio? What about all the things that we were looking at next, which again I'm both excited about in 2025, but also certainly a lot of work to do from a security perspective. Ken, anything you want to add for next year?
Yeah, I think maybe next year, maybe a little bit farther, capture will not be a very good defense mechanism. If you have the operator or computer use agent, which recognizes the capture and do the work, right? So it will bypass the capture security control. This one, I think maybe next year, especially if operator has a very good model behind it. And prompt injection will still be the top one as well. But I do see the agent capability is especially used in red teaming. I see some research from OpenAI using process-based reward model to teach the agent instead of just based on outcome, right? It seems yield a good result. And also in terms of how agent or model making certain decision, some of the research in the what is called mechanistic interpretability or reverse engineers model could potentially have some breakthrough.
Love that. And then last but not least, Mark, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think my concerns are less about the specific threats and more about the process. I mean, what the models have shown that I think we just need to assume that we're not going to be able to predict the next threat, and we need to change the way we engineer in order to help mitigate these things before they happen. So I think I think there needs to be different there needs to be security engineers, software engineers, machine learning engineers, all kind of cross-pollinating ideas in the development of what be it a foundational model or a new Gen AI product, and stress testing that project from within before it's actually released to production produces a stronger result in the end. And I think we will avoid some of these unknown unknowns that kind of creep up on us. And I think the other thing that, at least for me, I feel like this transition from a proactive security approach to a reactive one is going to be very key. Along the same lines, the models are very dynamic and things will change very fast. We need to just assume that's going to be the case, and we need to build systems around that uncertainty. So I think that there are good ways we can do this that are similar to like product abuse kind of workflows, where we see scanning happening on a server, or password sprays happening, and we ratchet up the security controls according to react to those things, rather than proactive blocking, which limits user experience. So I think that's a key paradigm shift that I think is going to be key in the future.
Love that. Well, the one thing I didn't tell you when we started this session is we obviously have all of this recorded, and we got our predictions for 2025 now, and then we can all meet again in a year to see what has come true, and how we were wrong. Just given the timelines, maybe we have to do that session in about 3 months or something like that. Thank you for sharing all of that. That's so cool, and I always learn a lot talking with you about what has happened and what's next. We have received a couple of questions from the audience that we can maybe touch on for a couple of minutes before we finish, just at the top of the hour. There was a question, I think it was the first question that we received, from Antoine. Do you have examples of companies successfully implementing a testing robustification layer in their AI workflow? David, that's maybe something for you, not to put you on the spot here, but I guess testing robustification could be several things, but maybe you could share some thoughts around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, at Scale, we have a test and evaluation platform, which you can Google, and you'll find on our website, we have a top 10 on how these models are doing on certain reasoning tests. So, math, English, like various different layers of testing. It's not as much security, but I think that is still a really important validation to see how a model will test and evaluate itself, as these models continue to progress. I think internally at Scale, we do a lot of red teaming. That's one of our big pushes. That's, we've really invested a lot into this type of work. And so, I think it's going to continue to expand and grow in that sense. So, check out the test and evaluation platform. I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but I think that will give you some insights into what that looks like.
That's great. There's a question from Jared. Anyone have a Gen AI LLM formal security policy in place and would like to share? Looking for a template. Maybe what are, I'm not sure we can answer that exact question, but maybe sort of what are some of the resources to look at to get an idea of what a good formal security policy would look like. Maybe Ken or Mark, Nathan, any thoughts on that?
Security policy or security controls?
The question says security policy.
Oh, security policy is more high level. So, yes, my book do have some example of this, right? So it's one is like AI usage policy, right? If you are the employee, how do you use AI? Or what is permitted, what is not permitted, right? So it's AI usage policy, and also in terms of development, usually it's the responsible AI policy. It's really first you have to do the impact analysis before the project start, right? And then you decide what kind of level of the control should be in place. And if you need to do the third-party red teaming or just internal red teaming, and then you have the control gate in different phase in your development. And eventually in the runtime, if you go to Amazon, with SageMaker, you need the David's product to certainly as a default in your pipeline.
Yeah, this is actually the number one thing that most companies are struggling with. So, and I think like a lot of the customers I talk to, they're really overcomplicating the process. Like any policy, right, has to be driven from the top down. So, what is the organization's approach to the technology? And then that has to be worked into your policy because every company is going to have a different risk tolerance for different activities. So you really need to kind of work that into your policy. So a lot of companies already have acceptable use policies, development policies and procedures. They have some framework there. And it's really just about augmenting those existing things with the AI specific risks and concerns that you're concerned with. So analyzing the use cases, slipping in the controls that are within the risk tolerance of the organization. And it's not like it's final. You can always adjust the policy as you run into problems and kind of, work your way through it. So I think really the best place to start is just to do something and then to see how that works and then iterate on top of it.
There was one more question that I was really interested in as well. I would love to hear your thoughts. It was around, text and LLMs are all the rage now, but with images and other data types, how will you approach identifying mitigating security risks that cover all these different modalities? Mark, I know we've had some conversations about that. Any thoughts on what's going to change? Maybe next to the complexity itself. As we go multimodal?
Yeah, we're going to need increased insight and transparency in the models, I think, to do things well. We're going to need new tools to be able to inspect why things are happening. We're going to need to know how is the data being translated to tokens. Like these are all things I don't know myself how I've never actually attacked multimodal AI security problem yet, but yeah, this is definitely a good question. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts.
David, you're doing quite some work on multimodal stuff too, aren't you?
Yeah. I was just gonna say we've been red teaming image generation at least since January-ish, I think, and then we started adding document red teaming shortly after that. So we've been doing a lot of this adversarial testing and probing on these, and honestly, it's kind of more of a research endeavor at this point. I'm not sure. I'm kind of with Mark. I'm not sure exactly what we do with his findings, but as we continue to uncover and develop them, we partner really closely with Scale has a SEAL team. Basically, it's a research lab that we have, and so we've been partnering with them a lot on a lot of our discoveries that we've uncovered, and then we kind of ship it off to the PhDs who have a much better foundational understanding of how to make these models better. I think that to me is why I really love the AI red teaming part of it is, and also it's really interesting because it was in the readiness report, and you kind of touched on it earlier how you have 10-year-olds playing on Lakera. The barrier of entry is really, really low. It's really incredible. I think it's fun to give like my kid the system that I wrote and say, hey, try to do something, and she's able to generate like this really funky image, and like from there I'm able to red team that into how can I inject something weird into it. So the barrier of entry is super low, and I think that makes it a lot of fun to continue to find these discoveries, because I've found in my experience some of the best AI red teamers don't come from a security background. They're professional authors or writers or teachers. We have somebody in law enforcement that's been doing it, and it's really, really incredible to watch them work and uncover some really interesting prompts.
Yeah, there is some work from consortium of industry in terms of on the corporate right space, but I think it also will work for multimodal security. It's called C2PA. I think most of you heard of. Correlation of content provenance and authenticity. It's basically using a cryptographic function to sign the content or watermark the content to say attest that this is from a trusted source. and then it's building to the training, and you can actually validate even during the inference time. This could potentially a one of the solution. It's not perfect. Another one is during the building the application. If you have multiple source from text, from image, from video, you can validate the consistency. If the image say it's a dog, the text should not say it's the cat. So there is some cross reference, right? Of course, this is a huge topic. If the image itself can embed the instruction or prompt, it's a direct prompt injection now, right? And in this case, the model itself don't really know what is the instruction, what is actually the content. So we're just thinking the image really should be the content, and then we execute the instruction, right, within the image. So there's a lot of problem, but I think that we are still early in the multiple model use now. There's lots of new solutions were coming out. And we
Love
also
that.
discussed this in our AI control working group within Cloud Security Alliance.
Thank you for sharing that, and you know, I always love the amazing work that you're doing there. We are about to wrap up here. There was one question that I will use for the outro of this session here, and that was around, you know, whether there are any examples of good practices for corporate AI training in this field, and there are many, and we will follow up with some of the resources. But I also want to mention that you know, at Lakera, we obviously you know, do a lot of work to provide these kind of resources to people and organizations around the world, and we've got a really fun piece of sort of content that is coming up around building AI security awareness through red teaming with Campbell. So really looking forward to that. You'll be sure to find that on social media. And in the meantime, check out our AI Security Hub, where you find a lot of other interesting resources on how to get started, what the different threats are, and how to think about AI security more generally. So with that, you know, if you are building Gen AI applications, don't think about security at the very last minute. Often leads to a lot of frustrations that we've certainly seen this year. Bake this in from the beginning if you're not quite sure yet, you know, what kind of volume you're seeing in production, or, you know, what your exact production setup is, or, you know, you've got all these question marks, but, you know, you are touching sensitive data. We do offer a free trial for Lakera Guard, and it takes about 5 minutes to get started. So go check it out and let us know if you have any questions. Nathan, Mark, David, Ken, thank you so much for joining. I always appreciate your insights, and it's great to have you on this show. 2024 was definitely an exciting and interesting year, and I look forward to connecting with you again in 2025 and seeing how we are all faring in the world of Gen AI. So thanks for your time, always appreciated, and happy holidays.